This video isn't for people who like attention. It's not for those who fill every silence before it even forms, who believe stillness means weakness, who treat quiet as an empty space that must be filled. If that's you, you're probably already restless, and that's good. This isn't meant for you. This is for the quiet ones. The ones who learned how to disappear without meaning to. For the people who don't interrupt, who nod instead of insisting, who learned early that things move smoother when they don't slow them down. At first, this looks like strength. It looks like grace. It looks like maturity. You become the calm one, the steady one, the person people rely on when everything else shakes. You take pride in being that person. You tell yourself this is self-control, emotional intelligence, peace. But invisibility never begins with rejection. It begins with adaptation. You don't lose your place in the world because someone pushes you out. You lose it because nothing changes when you stay quiet. Because the world learns that you'll keep yourself small so it doesn't have to adjust. It starts small. It always does. A joke that stings but you let it slide. An idea you think but never say. A moment you feel misunderstood but you smile anyway to keep the mood light. At first it feels wise. You tell yourself you're keeping the peace, that you're avoiding unnecessary tension. You mistake suppression for maturity. You start to believe peace is just the absence of reaction. You become fluent in restraint. You hear yourself say, "It's fine," more times than you can count. Every thought passes through a filter. Will this make things awkward? Will this cause friction? Will it make me harder to love? And slowly, piece by piece, you remove everything that could make you noticeable. At first, people praise you for it. They call you composed. They say you're understanding. They say you're so easy to be around. You believe them. But what they really mean is, you've learned how to disappear without making anyone uncomfortable. The world rewards your quiet. It mistakes your compliance for kindness, your patience for peace, your self-erasure for empathy. You don't interrupt. You don't insist. You don't object. And so the world keeps flowing around you, not through you. At work, this looks like reliability. You never miss a deadline. You never raise your voice. You never demand credit. You make yourself invisible in the name of efficiency, and it works until it doesn't. Because reliability without visibility becomes silence. And silence over time becomes absence. The room stops noticing when you're missing. Projects continue without your input. Decisions get made without your insight. Not out of malice, out of momentum. You realize you've trained your surroundings to function without you. You became so adaptable that you adapted yourself out of relevance. That's the quiet heartbreak of invisibility. You think you're helping by disappearing, but you're really teaching the world that your presence doesn't matter. You are still here, still kind, still capable, but no longer felt. At first, it feels peaceful. There's no conflict, no chaos. You tell yourself this is harmony, but peace built on your absence isn't peace. It's a gentle kind of death. You stop expecting to be consulted. You start predicting that your ideas will stay unheard. You watch the same patterns repeat themselves, and you learn to stop expecting difference. You call it maturity. You call it acceptance. But what you've really accepted is the slow erasure of your own reflection. In relationships, it's quieter but deeper. You sense tension before it's spoken. You see the distance before it's named. You feel yourself dimming in someone else's world, but you don't bring it up. You don't want to sound needy. You don't want to seem dramatic. You tell yourself, "I'm stronger than that." So you absorb it. You bend, you adjust, you smooth. You turn discomfort into silence, and silence into habit. Soon, people stop asking what's wrong, not because they don't care, but because you've shown them there's no consequence in forgetting. You've taught them you'll stay, regardless. Your agreement becomes assumed, your silence becomes expected, your comfort becomes invisible labor, and so you fade. At first, invisibility feels like relief. No one argues, no one criticizes, no one rejects. You live untouched by conflict and untouched by connection. The more you adapt, the less you're seen. The less you're seen, the more you adapt. The cycle closes on itself like a snake biting its tail. You become the mirror everyone loves to look into because you reflect them perfectly. You never distort the image. You never cast your own shadow. But mirrors don't live. They only show what's in front of them. And you were born to be more than reflective. You start noticing it in small ways. The way your laughter sounds rehearsed. the way you stop mid-sentence because someone speaks louder, the way you keep your hands still, your posture careful. You start noticing that you take up less space than you used to, not just physically, but emotionally. You're there, but the room no longer bends around you. It flows like water past a stone that no longer resists. You start to wonder if anyone would notice if you didn't show up. You tell yourself you're overreacting. You remind yourself you're lucky. No conflict, no rejection, no trouble. But luck shouldn't feel like vanishing. You look back on years of choosing peace over presence, and you realize how many times you called erasure growth. You thought endurance was grace. You thought staying silent made you strong. You thought patience was virtue. But sometimes patience is just fear wearing a halo. You convinced yourself you were protecting others. You were really protecting yourself from being misunderstood. Invisibility doesn't start when the world forgets you. It starts when you stop reminding it who you are. You begin living in hypotheticals. What you would say, what you would ask, what you would become if it felt safe. Your thoughts become private monologues no one ever hears. Your emotions flatten into polite smiles. You live in parentheses, present but secondary. And the world, efficient as it is, moves on without resistance. You wonder when it happened. When did quiet stop being peace and start being punishment? When did understanding everyone else mean forgetting yourself? When did comfort become a cage you built with your own courtesy? The truth is, it didn't happen all at once. It happened one silence at a time. Every time you held your tongue to protect harmony, you taught the world that your voice was optional. Every time you nodded when you meant to disagree, you rewrote your own relevance. You became fluent in disappearing, until you could do it without thinking. But now, somewhere deep within, a quiet awareness starts to rise. A small pulse of defiance, a faint, nearly forgotten instinct. Maybe it's time to be seen again. You don't act on it yet. It's just a whisper, but it's louder than your silence has been in years. Because somewhere, beneath all the politeness, you still remember what it feels like to matter. And that memory refuses to. The thought arrives softly, like light leaking under a locked door. Maybe it's time to be seen again. You don't act on it right away. You carry it like a secret stone in your pocket, something small but heavy, warming with touch. For a while, it scares you. You've built your entire safety on quiet. To be seen feels like standing in direct sunlight after years underground. You notice it first in tiny rebellions. You speak up once when someone cuts you off. You ask a question in a meeting without rehearsing it in your head first. You say no without softening it with a smile. Each moment is small, but inside it feels seismic. Your voice sounds foreign. Your hands tremble afterward. You wonder if anyone noticed. They did. And the world, startled by the new sound of you, pauses. The pause is terrifying. You want to fill it, apologize for it, take it back. But then something else arrives. Breath, space, possibility. You realize that silence doesn't have to mean absence. It can also mean room. Room for your words to exist. Room for others to adjust. Room for presence to take its first steps back into the world. It's messy at first. You overcorrect. You speak too much one day, withdraw the next. You oscillate between overexposure and retreat. But visibility, like strength, returns in waves. Some people notice the change. They tilt their heads, trying to fit this new version of you into the outline they once drew. A few smile and adapt easily, others flinch. They were comfortable with your absence. Your return disturbs their balance. You feel the guilt rise, the old instinct to make them comfortable again. Resist it. Comfort kept you invisible. Discomfort is the price of coming back. You begin realizing how many invisible contracts you signed over the years. The unspoken agreements that said, I will stay small if it keeps you at ease. You start tearing them up one by one. It's not revenge, it's reclamation. At work, you speak earlier in meetings before everyone else's thoughts crowd yours out. Your sentences feel like stones tossed into a river, clumsy at first, then rhythmic. Sometimes they land with ripples. Sometimes they land with silence. But either way, they land. For the first time in a long time, you're not a ghost in your own story. You start feeling things again. Not just emotions, consequences, disagreement, laughter, tension, connection. It's startling how alive friction feels. You remember that you once had opinions, not the neutral, agreeable kind, but real ones. They return slowly, like color after fog. You realize you have preferences, desires, edges that once terrified you because you thought they'd make you unlovable. But edges give shape. Without them, you're just missed. People start reacting differently. Some step closer, curious about the warmth they feel from you now. Others step back, unsettled by your gravity. Both are proof that you're visible again. You no longer blend perfectly into the background. The world now must make room for your existence. And that is what being alive means. There are hard days too. Days when you regret speaking, when the old guilt claws back, when you feel too exposed, too loud, too much. But this time, you don't apologize for existing. You breathe through it. You let the discomfort be your teacher. Because each ache of visibility carries a lesson, presence hurts because it's heavy. And you are finally learning to bear your own weight. You start noticing what kind of silence you prefer. The kind that holds thought, not suppression. You sit with yourself longer. You hear your own voice again when the room is empty. It sounds shy at first, but true. In that voice, you hear memories of the person you were before adaptation became armor. You remember what curiosity felt like. You remember laughing before checking who else was laughing. You remember dreaming without editing for practicality. You begin saying those dreams out loud again, even the impossible ones, because speaking them names them, and naming is the first step toward reality. Your body starts changing too, not outwardly, but in posture. Your shoulders unfold, your hands gesture without permission. You walk into rooms without shrinking first. You take up air, you take up time, you take up meaning. And people slowly begin to orbit differently. They pause when you enter. They wait for your thoughts. They ask your opinion. The same world that once forgot to notice you now starts recalibrating around your voice. You realize that the world was never cruel. It was obedient. It followed your lead. When you signaled absence, it believed you. Now that you signal presence, it believes that too. And that's the quiet miracle of returning. You don't have to demand recognition. You only have to exist loudly enough that the universe can't pretend you don't. You begin to reframe your history. You stop calling it wasted time. You understand that your invisibility was practice, the long, unglamorous training of awareness. You learned how people move, how energy flows, how connection works beneath the noise. That knowledge is power. You're not starting over, you're starting deeper. Sometimes old habits whisper. They tell you to soften, to step aside, to disappear just a little. You smile at them like ghosts of a language you no longer speak. Then you answer, gently but firmly, not this time, because you finally know to be quiet is not the same as to be erased. You can hold silence without losing yourself inside it. You begin to notice the ripple effect of your re-entry. People who once overshadowed you start questioning their volume. They begin listening more. You didn't demand this balance. You inspired it by existing differently. Your presence has gravity again, and gravity teaches space. At home, conversations deepen. You start saying what you mean, not what's easy. You start asking for what you need, even when your voice shakes. You start setting boundaries that sound like compassion instead of walls. Some people leave. They preferred the version of you that absorbed everything, but others arrive, drawn to the steadiness that comes from authenticity. These are your people, the ones who hear your quiet as intention, not emptiness. And then, one morning, something simple happens. You wake up, and for the first time in years, you don't rehearse yourself in your head before the day begins. You just get up. That's what healing looks like. Not grand declarations, but the quiet end of self-negotiation. You've stopped asking permission to exist. There's freedom in that, but also grief. You grieve the years you spent muted, the conversations you never had, the moments that passed untouched because you were too polite to disturb them. But you forgive yourself too. You see now that invisibility was never weakness. It was self-protection misunderstood as virtue. You were only ever trying to keep things safe. You just forgot that safety and silence are not the same. Now, when you enter a room, you don't try to disappear. You let the floorboards creak. You let the air shift. You let your footsteps have sound. You don't shrink your joy anymore. You laugh from the stomach, not the throat. You speak from the chest, not the teeth. You live from the center, not the edge. People notice. Some comment on the difference. You've changed, they say. They mean it both as compliment and confusion. You smile. You have changed. You became visible. You've learned that love can survive disagreement, that connection can exist without compliance, that peace can include noise. You stop measuring your worth by how little you disturb others. You start measuring it by how deeply you feel yourself move through the world. Sometimes you still fade, especially when you're tired, but now you know the way back. It's one sentence away, one breath, one small decision to stay. That's the real difference between disappearing and returning. Not confidence, but choice. You no longer disappear by accident. If you go quiet now, it's deliberate. You choose silence the way an artist chooses shadow, not to erase the picture, but to give it depth. And slowly, your life fills with presence. Your conversations become heavier, richer. Your laughter echoes longer. Your words leave traces. Rooms remember you after you leave. You realize something extraordinary. You didn't have to become someone else to be visible. You only had to stop editing the person you already were. Visibility isn't volume, it's alignment. It's when your outer world finally matches the shape of your inner one. You live slower now, but fuller. You speak less often, but when you do, the air changes. That's what presence really is. Not constant expression, but undeniable impact. When people speak of you now, they don't say quiet. They say anchored. They say intentional. They say real. And maybe that's the most powerful transformation of all. You've stopped trying to be liked and started allowing yourself to be known. Known for your warmth, your conviction, your timing, your truth. You've become the person who no longer has to vanish to keep things easy. You're the one who teaches others that softness can coexist with significance. That peace doesn't mean silence. That love doesn't require erasure. And as you move through the world with this new gravity, you feel something shift permanently. You feel the hum of existence, not the frantic rush of proving, but the steady pulse of belonging. Because this is what visibility truly means, to belong to the world without abandoning yourself to it. You walk forward now, neither loud nor small, but whole. The world, efficient as ever, adjusts. It makes room again, not for the idea of you, but for your actual, unedited self. And as the air bends gently around your presence, you realize you were never truly invisible. You were simply waiting to remember how to be seen. Now you remember, you are here, you are felt, you are staying.